Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's officially afternoon. It's 12:01 here. I just want to welcome you all to today's webinar as we launch the new STM Center for Faith, Reason, and Justice. My name is Celeste Wallacechuck, and for those of you who maybe don't know me, I'm a member of the campus ministry team here at St. Thomas More College. And I will be acting as kind of our Zoom host for the day. It's an absolute pleasure to have you all present here with us as we launch our new center with its first event. It is fitting that today is our launch day, as it is the feast of St. Thomas Aquinas today, who is the patron saint of universities and the patron saint of students. He, as I'm sure you are all aware, is an extremely influential philosopher and theologian who wrote on the interplay of faith and reason and the necessity of both. And we will certainly be asking for his intercession for our event here today and on the work of the center as it goes on. So as we begin today, let's just take a moment to acknowledge that, though we are coming from different places, we're coming together virtually here today, that our college, St. Thomas More College, and the foundation of the center is on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respects to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place, and we reaffirm our relationship with one another. I would now like to ask Dr. Carl Still, the president of St. Thomas More College, to please come forward to give us a bit of a history on the development of the center and its mission and purpose going forward.
Thanks very much, Celeste. I hope everyone can hear me. Well, good afternoon to all of you who are joining us for today's launch of the new Center for Faith, Reason, Peace, and Justice at St. Thomas More College. Thank you for being with us for what is really a historic occasion in the life of our college. This new center has been years in the making. The idea for such a center first arose around the time STM proposed a minor in Catholic Studies. That marked the first time that the University of Saskatchewan approved a program at STM for which there was no counterpart at the university. Not long after that, a minor devoted to social justice and the common good was proposed and approved. Since these programs were multidisciplinary, they had no obvious departmental home. One way to house them was to create a center that could oversee these programs, coordinate between them, and develop active community outreach to potential partners. STM already had one center, the Prairie Center for the Study of Ukrainian Heritage, and we thought it might be time to add another. Now, it's easy enough to imagine a new center, but establishing one is an arduous process, as we found out. A dedicated group of faculty worked for a couple of years to put together a formal proposal. We obtained letters of support from deans at the University of Saskatchewan, the Roman Catholic Bishop of Saskatoon, the Director of Education of Greater Saskatoon Catholic Schools, among others. Once it was complete, the formal proposal required approval by our college's faculty council and our Board of Governors, and then official recognition by the University of Saskatchewan. And after all those steps were completed, it was necessary to find a director for the new center from among our faculty and to assemble an advisory committee that included the founding partners of the center, the Diocese, Catholic school system, and Catholic healthcare. You will hear from all of them today in our program. As we launch the new center today, STM has also proposed a new program in peace studies that again has no parallel at the University of Saskatchewan. And thus the name of the new center reflects the three founding programs: Catholic Studies, focused on the ongoing dialogue between faith and reason and its significance for our culture; Critical Perspectives on Social Justice and the Common Good, which explores justice and solidarity across cultures; and now also Peace Studies, which will analyze and address conflict and its resolution. The new center will coordinate instruction in these three programs, and it will foster new inquiry into all kinds of topics associated with faith and reason, peace and justice. In all those ways, it will serve the students at St. Thomas More College and the University of Saskatchewan by creating opportunities for study that would not otherwise exist on our campus. That might be reason enough to create a center, but it's not the ultimate reason we created this center. This center is intended to reach beyond the walls of STM and the boundaries of the university campus to engage community partners who share an interest in the issues of our time that involve faith, peace, and justice. It will amplify the valuable work already made possible by the Leslie and Irene Dubé Chair for Catholic Studies at STM and extend it even further out into our community. Today, we will hear a first conversation about how the new center can collaborate with its original partners. From here, the conversation will grow and include other topics and other partners. The center will truly succeed if it convenes discussions on critical issues that might not otherwise take place. At a time when many of us are more comfortable talking only to those who already think the way we do, the center will practice the art of dialogue, which Pope Francis recommends so strongly. You can expect the center to discuss the ongoing dialogue between the Catholic Church and the wider society, but also to welcome into that discussion many perspectives from other Christian communities, from other communities of faith, and from any and all people of goodwill who are engaged in making our society a more peaceful and equitable place for all its members. In a time of worldwide pandemic that is magnifying every issue that we normally grapple with, we have much to talk about and to learn from one another. We have much to recover from, much to rethink in how we live or want to live, and much to rebuild in our communities and in communities throughout the world to which we are connected. So let's begin that conversation today. On behalf of St. Thomas More College, I offer my profound thanks to all our faculty and staff who worked to develop this new center, and to all who will oversee it, including our dean, the new director, and the advisory committee. And to all of you joining us today in this video conference, I thank you for your time and your support for this bold project. And I invite you, and I mean that, I invite you to join the conversations that the new center will sponsor and to propose to us the great issues of our time that we need to address together through dialogue. I assure you, we will be listening. So thank you for your presence today, and please enjoy the discussion. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Still. I would now like to ask Dr. Rogal Kumaran, who is the Dean of St. Thomas More College, to please come forward. He will be offering some brief words on the center's academic purpose within the college.
Thank you, Silas. Thank you, Carl. Thank you all for being here. I just prepared a small speech, so that the panel, we can hear the panel. It gives me great pleasure to be at the inauguration, at the launch of the Center for Faith, Reason, Peace, and Justice. Carl usefully gave us a history of how this idea kind of originated and how it has kind of come into fruition, as it were. I inherited the plan for the center in 2016. As Carl said, this is an idea born from during Father George Smith's presidency and fleshed out by Carl himself when he was a dean, and Gertrude, the director of mission and ministry, and various a small group of faculty. I was not part of that faculty group, so it was kind of new to me when I came in 2016. So when I took over, a lot of practical, administrative, and conceptual challenges had to be addressed and met. The budget cut of 2017 to the tune of a whopping 5% was a big blow, but we have soldiered on, and now the center is a reality. As Carl mentioned, this is historic. This is a significant day for the college. For me, the center is another expression of what we do in our institution. So this is a self-expression. The center is another vehicle of that expression. Our commitment to liberal arts and to the idea of university is expressed through our federation with the College of Arts and Science and our relationship with the University of Saskatchewan. but our Catholic identity and our mission, so far expressed through the physical space of this college and through the collective consciousness of our founders, presidents, students, and alumni, faculty past and present, the Catholic community of Saskatoon and beyond, as well as friends of the college and other stakeholders. This center is one more channel, a more immediate, unique channel of this expression. Through this center, we aim to achieve a fuller self of who we are, through our curriculum directly speaking to our mission, values, and identity, through research exploring deeper significance of our purpose and mission, and through outreach, so we can practice what we preach to be an embodiment of Catholic social justice. So those are the three-pronged, the three pillars of the center. There is an academic mission and there is a research mission. So this, both of them, are directed towards academic mission of the college, and of course we also have the outreach to practice our Catholic social justice. Thanks are due to a lot of people. I want especially to thank the President Carl and Gertrude, the people who sit on the and also the people who sit on the advisory committee, especially the external members like Blake Sittler, Darcie, Lich, and Myron, Rogal. And want to say a special thank you to all the faculty who have made this center possible. The advisory committees for Catholic Studies and Social Justice for Common Good and the Common Good. These are the initial two pillars of the center and at the moment. And their chairs have done great service to make this new innovation a reality. Those committees also have representatives from the College of Arts and Science, thus linking us to the greater academic community at the university. So I thank them all. And I want to congratulate and thank Chris, the first director of the center, for accepting that position and being willing to guide it through what has been a difficult year and what I hope will be both a challenging and fulfilling future for us. He has been instrumental in the Budding Peace Studies Initiative, soon to be a certificate program, thus becoming the third pillar of the center. This initiative was inspired by Leslie Sabada, one of our session lecturers, but whose involvement in the college has been deep and long, with the help of others like Cindy Wallace, Susanna Bonds, and others. And Chris has also contributed to the successful beginning of this venture. I am sure his dynamic leadership will shape the center in years to come and make an important part of what STM is to all of us. Again, thank you all for joining us today. Your presence and blessing augur well for the center. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kumaran. I would now like to invite Dr. Chris Rinko, who is an associate professor and the department head for the Department of Religion and Culture here at STM, and as Arul had mentioned, the director for our new Center for Faith, Reason, Peace, and Justice to come forward. He will be moderating our panel discussion this afternoon. So Chris, if you could come forward, thank you.
Thanks, Celeste. So I'm very happy to be here. For those of you who know me, who I know at least 90% of the people on the call, I'm excited about all these areas in terms of the academic, the research, and particularly the community outreach. So today what we thought we'd do with this panel is, as we start something new, we've done a lot of preparatory work, we've done a lot of theoretical work on the center, but now it's the incarnation of those ideas. And one of the things that's very exciting to be amongst the first people working on this is that we get to sort of define what the center is and what it will do. And to me and to the administration at STM, it's very important that the community partners are part of that process. So right now, we're going to go through the 3 different community partners are going to introduce themselves. And then I have some questions that they know are coming. And as they publicly answer those questions, to me, that gives us an accountability in terms of our community outreach, and it helps set the direction for the center. So that's sort of the purpose of the panel today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over, and I'll ask Darcie to introduce herself.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see all of you here. My name is Darcie Lich, and I work with Greater Saskatoon Catholic Schools, which is the largest publicly funded Catholic school division in Saskatchewan, and we are the third largest publicly funded Catholic school division in Western Canada. We serve about 20,000 students in 43 elementary schools and 7 high schools in Saskatoon and the surrounding area. I am a coordinator of learning services here for GSCS, and I am responsible for the administration of religious education programming. So I oversee curricular Catholic studies programming and instruction, as well as faith formation opportunities for students from pre-K through 12, and also education, professional development, and formation for our staff members.
Thank you, Darcie. Could I ask Blake to introduce himself, please?
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Blake Sidler. I'm the Executive Director of the Catholic Health Association of Saskatchewan. So we are the association for the many Catholic hospitals and special care homes in Saskatchewan. So we offer support, advocacy, formation, and support for all of the various Catholic members in healthcare, and try to create a connection with the parishes across the province, awareness through newsletters and through our provincial convention that we offer every year. So excited to be here.
Thank you, Blake. And last but not least, Myron, who I worked with on many, many things. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kristen. Good afternoon to all. It's wonderful to be here today for the launch of this new exciting endeavor here at STM. As Chris mentioned, my name is Myron Rogal. I reside here in Treaty 6 territory, traditional homeland of the Métis people. And I serve with the Roman Catholic Diocese. So I've served with the diocese since 2009, and a couple of years in parish ministry previous to that. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with what that term means, diocese, it's just an ecclesial geographical region. So in our case, we run from around the Wadena area in eastern Saskatchewan over to Unity, kind of bumping up against that Alberta border, and then back down to Fox Valley, just north of Maple Creek, and up again to Saskatoon. So I serve in the capacity as coordinator of justice and peace, which really entails 2 prongs. So one would be working with many community members. Much of that would be ecumenical, sometimes in the interfaith realm, working towards that common good out there in the community. The other part, the other prong, which the first certainly feeds into, would be animating parish activity. So activity directed towards specifically advocacy and education at those parish levels and deanery levels across the diocese. So outside of that, I'm married, I have 4 children, reside in Vonda, and a lot of my volunteer time has been spent for many years now serving the community of L'Arche, which the college also has a partnership with.
Thank you, Myron. So now we're going to move to the questions. So what the panelists asked is that, so we worked on the questions together, but they're just discussion starters. So there's no test and they don't have to be answered fully or something like that. They're just discussion starters. So we'll go through rounds, and then the panelists have asked that I also sort of respond to each round. So I guess we'll try to mix up the order a little bit maybe, and we'll start with Blake. And and for the public, the first question is, where does your work intersect with your understanding of the center's vision, mission, and purpose?
There we go. So I understand that most people will have the document or have had access to the document outlining the goals and mission and purpose. So one of them is around the idea of Catholic studies, the intersection of faith and reason. And I think if you want to look at the intersection of faith and reason, it's in so many places in the world, none so viscerally as in a Catholic healthcare facility. So through my work with Chaz, I work with the executive directors and the spiritual care teams at the various sites across the province. Each of our member sites have a staff, or at least committees, who are focused on maintaining and promoting the mission, vision, values of Catholic healthcare locally. So we often say in Catholic healthcare that the lowest bar we can set is that the healthcare we offer has to be on par with that of our public partners. So we need to differ and offer something more through the factors that grow out of our Catholic identity. One of the quotes that I love, that some of you probably would have heard, is from Joseph Cardinal Bernardin, who said that our distinctive vocation in Christian healthcare is not so much to heal better or more efficiently than anyone else. It is to bring comfort to people by giving them an experience that will strengthen their confidence in life. The ultimate goal of our care is to give those who are ill, through our care, a reason to hope. So what many Catholic institutions need to wrestle with, into the very near future, is how can we better develop and maintain and celebrate our Catholic identity, even as our staffing is becoming, wonderfully more diverse. Another aspect of the center is exploring expressions of justice, solidarity, across diverse cultures and contexts. So, whether you're talking about St. Paul's Hospital serving a core neighborhood, or a care home or a health center in rural Saskatchewan, working, caring for the elderly and those in health crisis, opportunities for partnership and learning are, I think, really in the future are bountiful. One of the concepts that Catholics need to continue to promote is this idea of the dignity of life. That our dignity stems from our ontological outlook. I've probably heard that word first from one of my old STM professors, either Father Boyd or Father Callum, but that our dignity lies in our creation and grace, and not through how much we can offer the world in a measurable way, as if our life was merely sort of a capitalist venture. So I think the efforts that will be made in terms of nonprofit groups and community groups is important. Again, moving into the future Catholic institutions, I think they'll live or die by the collaborative relationships they're able to develop and maintain. We've seen in other provinces where Catholic healthcare and education were vibrant, and within a short span of time, were lost. So, for hundreds of years, the Catholic Church and her institutions were envisioned as, thick iron stakes driven deep into the ground. We were the pilings and the skyscraper, but in the last century, we've learned that nothing can be taken for granted. Every tower has its limits, and the limits of our height are directly inverse to the depth of those piles. So over the upcoming years, collaborating with institutions like STM College will help us to reevaluate, study, reinforce those foundational character traits. How do we get back to the roots, the gifts, the charisma of our faith, without falling into the trap of nostalgia or triumphalism?
Thank you, Blake. Myron, would you like to respond to that question?
So in many ways, like the diocese, I think this new center is aiming to become a hub for social justice that, as Pope Francis would say, is directed at reaching those in the periphery. So sometimes leading, sometimes being led by, while of course being grounded in the pillars of Catholic social teaching. So I say my work is closely aligned in that way, engaging in those intersections of faith and reason within a Catholic cultural context and beyond that, while exploring the other pillar, social expressions of justice and solidarity in diverse cultures. So whether that be in the wider community, being that witness, so bringing that witness of Catholic social teaching into the community, but also seeing it manifested there in many new ways, which we might not have received otherwise. So some early examples have already started of this collaboration. One is ongoing right now. It's a three-part series looking at the Amazon Synod and the apostolic exhortation that was released from that, looking at some of the challenges of the people in Amazonia, so through that international perspective, but also the struggles that we share with the Indigenous peoples here, and some of the solutions that we can come to walk together on. So that's a three-part series that is already going on, and part 2 is coming up in February. A brand new one, which has just started a couple of days ago, is an event that we hope to host with the center, looking at Fratelli Tutte, the recent papal encyclical, and how its application may direct us towards a just recovery out of COVID-19. So just pleased to say that collaboration has already started.
So I'll just take, I'm not meant to respond yet, but I'll just take this opportunity since Myron's done a wonderful pitch for those two events to let you know that those events are taking place February 16th, the first one on the Amazonian Synod at 6:30 Saskatchewan time. And the second one is a partnership with the Western Conference for Social Justice will be taking place on March 2nd at 8 o'clock Saskatchewan time. So if you want further information on those, please just email me and I'll send you the information. The March 2nd event is developing in dialogue in the spirit of which we're speaking right now. Darcie, would you like me to ask the question again, or you're good?
No, I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
As far as where our work in the Catholic School Division intersects with the that of the center, most formally, it would be safe to say that our areas intersect with respect to Catholic studies. My job is to coordinate and direct religious education formation and instruction for staff and students in our school division. And especially at the high school level, faith, reason, justice, and peace are all addressed specifically and very purposefully in our high school Catholic curricula. As well, these are addressed at the elementary level within the context of religious education programming. And it's at the elementary level where we see and nurture the beginnings of a really, really deep desire for justice. And it extends beyond the boundaries of our classrooms. It leads not only into outreach projects that are undertaken perhaps with local agencies, for example, but to actual formations of justice clubs. We even have them at our high school, and they're powerful kids, and they're very, very driven, and they have a deep, deep connection to what it means to be Christ's disciples, working for justice and peace. So in addition to this animation of religious education and Catholic studies per se, we're trying our best to animate this passion for service, not only in terms of charitable work, but in terms of what it means to be people of justice. And we work deeply to instill this from the starting point as Christ's disciples. What is our why? How do we identify our why? When we reach out and we work together with, for example, the Friendship Inn or the Food Bank, what is our why that separates us from our neighbors across the street in the public school division? And so it's that foundation of faith that really drives us. And so within our purpose and efforts, both curricular and extracurricular, I see a lot of cross purposes here, and it also extends to our staff as well. There's a lot of formation that goes on, professional development, and so there's a lot of places where our work can intersect in terms of what we are doing together to work as people of faith. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. So when I hear the community, and you see what wonderful community partners we have already on the advisory circle, and we're also hoping to grow the advisory circle to be more representative of the community in areas of peace and the diversities of Catholicism. But when I hear the description of this work, I think it's really powerful to me, and there's lots of what I would say are confluences between what you folks are doing, particularly with your outreach work and your needs to explore the diversity and potential within Catholic traditions, and the way that Catholic traditions can move out to embrace racial and cultural diversities. That's what the college is trying to be and is, and wants to be more fully. And I think that this partnership can help both of us in our work. So I'll just say that maybe to respond. So I'm very excited about it. You can't see probably because of low resolution, but I have goosebumps when I hear you speak. So the third question that we had here was, where do you see promise and potential for the center to contribute to your work? And maybe this time we'll start with Myron.
Sure. So firstly, I guess would be to what has already been happening through STM for many years, just that ongoing partnership between hosting events that are engaging and supporting the work of one another. So that's something that I think the center will really enhance. The second that I'm really excited about is the possibility of film and discussion nights. So I think that film has a way of bringing together people in unity by putting them in that same similar time and space for an hour, hour and a half as they sit together and watch a film. And then, of course, go into a discussion after that, which hopefully leads in a constructive direction, building unity and looking towards the truth. And so that in itself is quite exciting. that you can have people coming together and seeing what the other is seeing, so to speak. So I'm also thrilled to imagine the link that the center could become between non-for-profits, community-based organizations, and the community at large. So I've seen time and time again that such a goal can only become manifested when there are resources and personnel put behind it. So I'm just grateful, and I see promise in the investment that has already happened in this center and all of those who have given behind that. So practically, I think what that last point means is that going forward with the center, organizing events, initiatives, advocating together will be expedited. And this is something that is very, very hopeful and that I'm excited about. And we're just grateful that we can continue to roll up our sleeves and get to work with STM in this capacity.
Thank you, Myron. So over to Darcie.
Thank you. In terms of working together with the center, I can see several areas in which we're able to cooperate, and it branches in two directions, with staff and with students. In terms of staff, I see some opportunities here for our formal teacher formation. Whenever our teachers are hired on a continuing contract, they are expected to undertake a certain amount of essential faith learning. It used to be delivered in the form of a university class, but now it's delivered in-house. However, we do work with outside agencies from time to time and draw on their expertise. And so I see this as a particularly exciting opportunity to work with our young teachers while they're fresh and enthusiastic and a little scared, and bring them in and show them the depth and the breadth of the knowledge that is contained and the passion at the center. I also see additional professional development opportunities available to our staff throughout their career. A lot of these are more informally set up, and those ones seem to be the most popular. And we actually, we have a new program which is kind of, well, it's a ripoff. It's kind of like Theology on Tap, but we call it Parables and Pints. And it's enormously popular, where we just sit down, we have a speaker come in, and there's time for fellowship and discussion. And so this is a perfect opportunity to reach people based on a particular area of interest, for example, instead of having to sit down and work through some mandatory formation classes, which are fine too. So in terms of moving from staff to students, I see some potential here as well. There's lots of opportunity for deliberate learning within classroom settings. I can see opportunities, especially now that we're really, really good at using Zoom, opportunities for people to speak to our students in the context of a class setting. A lot of our Catholic studies curricula have particular areas where they are asked to examine justice, peace, reason. And so to bring in somebody who can speak to that, who isn't their teacher, so that there's another voice that's coming in, is particularly opportune. And then I think one thing that I'm particularly excited about is the possibility of ongoing outreach to our students. We are really, really good at planting seed. And we have lots of kids, especially at the high school level, who are really, really invested in justice, and it's deep within them. But sometimes when they leave us, it's kind of a case of, well, you're on your own. Good luck. Hopefully you find an agency that works with you and that really appeals to you. And they feel kind of groundless, because they've been working together so closely with a group that identifies this stuff, that when they get out there past the high school boundaries, they don't really know where to turn. My daughter, for example, is registered for university next year, and she's part of the social justice club at her high school. And one of her concerns was, where do I go when I want to keep up this work? I can't just phone the mayor's office and say I want to keep doing this. And she said, I don't really feel connected, for example, to Justice and Peace, like the organization itself, or Development and Peace, because they're such a big organization and kind of faceless. And so this is a really, really good opportunity for those kids who are hooked to draw them in deeper and give them a place to be, give them a place to work from, to belong, and in order to keep that work going and to keep that seed growing. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Blake, if you would like to answer that question.
Sure. I just saw one of the comments pop up there. Gertrude
Yeah.
mentioned that the STM Just Youth group would be a great place to go for your daughter, Darcie. So hopefully we can create more opportunities like this. So when I think about the promise and the potential for this center, and you again describe the transformation of conflict, learning and servicing opportunities in areas of faith, reason, peace, and justice, as well as the conference and lecture series. I think there's lots of potential there. I think for myself in Catholic healthcare, maybe more importantly, this idea of Catholic identity is not well understood, even by people working in the very facilities that in our case should be the beacons of that message. I was on a Zoom call this morning with the Catholic Healthcare Alliance of Canada's Governing Council, and they had in a guest Brian Reardon, who was the Vice President of Communication and Marketing for the Catholic Health Association of the United States. And he was just sharing some words with us about the work that he does down there. He said that down in the States there that they did some public opinion research into, better understanding, Catholic healthcare's, opinion in the public, by the public. And, so they consulted with a lot of different experts and brought back the research. And basically it showed that there's a distinct opinion of Catholic healthcare, but it's not clear. It's not very well articulated. So in my conversations with about 15 executive directors across the province and many leaders in Catholic healthcare, is that our inability to articulate who we are and what we offer is, it's a warning sign. And this is an important challenge, opportunity, that we need to meet. And I think that something like the center gives us a chance to partner, to have that conversation, to begin to articulate who we are, what we mean in this modern context. Issues like the environment, justice, reconciliation with First Nations, the common good, equity, immigration, you could go on and on, affordable housing, which is in some provinces a major piece of Catholic healthcare. Our relationship with the 2S LGBTQ plus community, racism. Historically, these have not been health issues, but these are potential areas where partnerships with you at STM could be discussed and developed. So, Catholic healthcare is so often defined by the procedures that we do not do, and that's not as helpful as we'd like. If you took your car into a garage to get something fixed, and the only thing they advertised or told you was what they wouldn't do to your car, how do you form an opinion about the services that they do offer, right? So I think the Catholic Church and her institutions are kind of at a postmodern crossroads. Who do we want to be going into the future? How will we relate with the world moving into the future? Where will our church grow and evolve? And what do we have to offer the world, that is in such a desperate need of our compassion, our faith, our hope? So I think events where we can gather our staff, our community, will serve a great, opportunity to discuss these issues and to articulate the relevance and importance of what our Catholic character and identity brings to the world.
So thank you all for those. So I'll try to respond to the points, and this is actually a really good way into this because it's stuff that we've been talking about a little bit already, but as we're doing this publicly, we're also, like I said, crafting the actual incarnation of the vision and mission of the center. So this is very exciting to me. So Myron talked about hosting the film and discussion nights. That's something that we put into the plan in part because that was really transformative for my own intellectual development and as an entry point as someone who hadn't come from an academic culture. Got me thinking about ideas, their relevance, their social relevance. So the college has space, right? It has space that it can offer, and something at nighttime we tend to have more space. So, and we have a theater, and you can all remember what it's like to go to a theater, and there'll be like a craving for that once a just transition away from COVID has happened. So we can offer that space. We're central in Saskatoon. It'll be a place to gather for students and community members. Part of that Myron also mentioned was the idea of the relationship with not-for-profits. We have lots of different expertise because we're a broad liberal arts college, and folks, some of whom work for us and don't necessarily identify with Catholic traditions, but have something to contribute in areas like social research, etc. And to make that connection and to give them a place to use their professional skills, what we call the scholarship of community service, in a way that makes a difference beyond perhaps an article, in my case, that maybe 7 people would read, right? Something as soon as they've gone and contributed to a policy document or talked to a community group, or in my case, if I've done that, I've already reached more people than an article I would have spent 2 or 3 months on, right? So it's pretty exciting to be able to start making those connections. I'm terribly excited about this idea of finding, there's existing paths where STM folks have in the past contributed to the formation of teachers, but to deepen that relationship and to think of ways that it could work better in both formal and informal ways. And a lot of that is not just having this, the old model was the teachers come to us, they take a class. That's helpful in different ways, but also going out into the community, using that opportunity of professional development days. That's an easy transition for a lot of STM faculty because that's what we do all the time, right, is share ideas. And then you can maybe get our best stuff instead of something that we have to spread out over 13 weeks. Parables and pints, again, easy transition. That's the type of thing that we're meant to be doing. Just try to make it into maybe more accessible language, and that's a great atmosphere. It changes. I have the experience of theology on tap, and I know personally it changes the dynamics, and it's a different kind of dialogue, but a very valuable one. So I'm sure we'll be able to find folks interested in that. The idea of using the technologies to reach students is exciting and necessary at this time, but also we have a history of going into the high schools and sharing, but have we gone into the elementary schools and shared? Can we do that more? Can we do that in different ways? And that's good for both of us. It related to what you were talking about with your daughter going and hopefully finding, as you saw in the chat, the Just Youth group. So we have so Just Youth is a development and peace affiliate at STM. We have that type of opportunity. We have the Justice and Service project opportunity, and then we have also community engaged learning. But letting students know about that, letting students see the actual professors, that they're not just people that work over there, but can come to your high school, can come to your elementary school and plant those seeds. And sometimes in the elementary school case, you might be planting a seed that's forgotten in its particularity, but starts to maybe be recovered later on. So when I hear about that the idea that someone who is passionate about social justice, when they came to the University of Saskatchewan would lose that passion, that would be, a tragedy. And we can show different paths to continue. And the center can be one of the ways that the STM community alerts folks to that path. Not the only way, but sometimes if you get things from different angles, that makes the connection. So we hope to be one of those connections. And I wrote already down here Just Youth before ShareTrue typed it. So that's a particular example. So we also, moving on to Blake's comments, this idea that faculty could help, sorry, I don't know where that phone is. Faculty could help articulate vision and mission for folks like Catholic Health. That would also be good for us as an institution when we're thinking through these questions of what our vision and mission is as an institution. And we already had talked about, and Myron said, oh, Chris would love to do this before I could even answer, because he knows, this idea of doing an education event that could have academic component, but also be community oriented on an issue related to Catholic health. And then today, Blake, you got me even more excited about that, because this is the classic peace studies idea entry point for health, right? Is to think of things like racism as a health issue, to think of Indigenous settler relations as a health issue, to think of the ecology, the environment as a health issue. And I think we can think more about that and maybe make it a little more specific of where we want to start. But I think that could be a really interesting first collaboration for us into the community. So thank you for all that. And thank you for sharing it publicly. So that's very exciting to me. Now we're going to move to slightly different types of questions, which is asking for the advice of the folks that you see in front of you publicly. So our question number 4 here, that we're doing perfect for time, I think. So we have just 2 more questions. So one of the driving purposes of the center is to build on existing connections and increase the college's community involvement, as you've heard. What is an idea or piece of advice you would share for the college to further grow mutually enhancing relationships with community partners? So what can we be doing? And I guess we'll start with Darcie this time.
For starters, I would say communicate, communicate, communicate. Make sure that we know about you, make sure that we know where you are, make sure that we know what you're doing, to the point of telling us all the time, because it's so easy, especially in times like these when people are being pulled in 1,000 different directions. It's easy to forget who's out there and what they're doing. And so I would say that make sure that you are visible, 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 and keep telling us about you. Keep advertising, keep finding ways to engage us, keep inviting us. Because sometimes if we can't make the first one, it doesn't mean that we're not interested. But if more invitations come all the time, we start to pay attention and we start to remember. And I would also say, and my kids always tell me, Mom, like Facebook is for old people. But one thing that the social media is really good at is kind of teasing out what are people really talking about right now, and find where some of those discussions are, and then see if we can identify some of the gaps where the discussions are happening, but no one's really addressing it, short of just kind of nattering at each other in chat boxes. And so in some ways that might actually help identify what people are talking about, and what they're keenly interested in, instead of just kind of, well, we hope this is what they're interested in, or this is kind of where we see our research going. So let's talk about what we're doing. Let's talk about what they're talking about. I would start there.
Thank you. Blake, would you like to respond?
Sure, I like that. The idea of relevance kind of comes up here too. I think, when I think of Catholic healthcare, it's such a broad field. So there's so many, opportunities, from the obvious medicine and trauma pieces to administration. We've got a new hospice opening, institution in both rural and urban sites across the province, fields of study, including ethics, holistic healing, the role of spirituality, for both our patients and staff. I think COVID is going to, has created a lot of conversation, but definitely afterwards, the trauma that stems from this, there's so many different issues that are coming up there, right? So now it's one thing to have a broad open field, but it's another thing to say, where are we going to work? But, when you think of a hospital, it's where people are born, they work, they heal, they suffer, they die. So if you want to experience the breadth of human experience, you just walk into a hospital, sit by the elevators for a few hours, and you're going to see the people sobbing, out of joy or sadness, people celebrating birth and healing and mourning the return of a disease or death. Families gather there, they bond, they fight, they reconcile, they sleep under newspapers and whisper on their phones, updating the family members who can't be there. It's such a rich place of opportunity. And I was thinking of the line this morning that there's no atheists in foxholes. Well, there might be atheists in hospitals, but many of them curse and pray to God just as well as any of the Desert Fathers. So, like I say, I just think plenty of opportunities here. It's mission territory. So Pope Francis in the past few years has described the church as a field hospital. And I've heard people address that, and they sanitize it. They want you to think of MASH, which, is a little rustic, but at least there's some order there, right? I think we really need to let that analogy speak to us, because in hospitals, especially during pandemics, everything has to be clean and hygienic. Every tool arrives in a hermetically sealed package, but a field hospital is different. In a field hospital, wounded soldiers are laid side by side on cots, on the grass, on a piece of tarp, maybe leaning up against a tree stump. It's all hands on deck. There's no time to wash for 20 seconds and sing happy birthday. Just wipe the mud and blood off and get back to work. That's not what they taught you in medical school, but it's what we need at this moment. So, for many of us on this Zoom meeting right now, we recognize that the Catholic Church has much to offer the world through our various community connections and realms of influence. But that message isn't magical. It's kind of like Darcie was saying, it needs to be made relevant and articulated. It doesn't convert by an overriding of the will, you know, it can't be enforced through some kind of grand narrative that people buy into. So I mean, my advice is that it needs to, you need to be bold, and you need to really offer something challenging and relevant and current. And again, what we've experienced from the life of the church is that those kinds of challenges and disagreements, when they are not present, we stagnate and we suffer. So I would say be bold, be relevant, be challenging.
Thank you. And Myron?
So firstly, I think a very practical one, and I've shared this before, the center could become a type of a clearinghouse for social justice. So through that lens, of course, of Catholic social teaching, a parallel model for that in Saskatoon that we see today is Reconciliation Saskatoon. So an organization that has the ownership is really of the community, but is of course housed by a centralized set of resources and in one particular place. So the benefit of that is that you can have this cross-pollination of events, of initiatives. If there is a charge for advocacy that comes on a common issue, those community partnerships and relationships are already there. So it's quite easy to move forward on. And aside from that, friend-raising was also one of the pillars in that initial document. So friend-raising is something that can relate to that, to the center acting as a clearinghouse, as a possibility. The second one, which ties into what Darcie and Blake were saying here, which is very near and dear to my heart, is to seek out those, for the center to deliberately seek out those who they disagree with, or who we disagree with, to see where those gaps are in our community, as Darcie was saying, and to use the medium of stories. We're seeing today, of course, a hyper-polarized world, and we're seeing that facts pitted against facts, and not even sure what the sources of those facts are. But a story, of course, is not something that is wrong. A story is always has pieces of truth built into it. So that's a vehicle that can be used to bring people together. So today, of course, as we celebrate the feast of this great saint, St. Thomas Aquinas, we can look a little bit to the pedagogy of the Socratic method that Aquinas himself used. So kind of this courtyard of the Gentile style of idea, where to have this safe place where people can come together, where listening can be honored, stories can be shared, and hopefully dialogue can come out of that can help people be directed towards the truth. And I think this is a gift that academia, and specifically this center, could offer to break down those many false dichotomies that exist in our community that not only divide people, but in fact paralyze us from accessing the truth.
Thank you, Myron. So this will be the last question I respond to, and then we just have a very brief question before we move to Gertrude's blessing. There's a lot of richness in your comments, and one of the reasons I wanted to record this is I want to listen to it several times of what you have to say. So to start with, Darcie, yeah, this idea of communication, that's part of the thing. I'm very fortunate to have the support and commitment of our communication officer and office, and we're going to try to, this is another way to make the college visible and to fill the gaps that you're talking about, going out and looking where we need to communicate, looking how we need to address those issues that are emerging in different places within the community, including social media. This relates perfectly, I think, to Blake's comments about being bold and relevant. To me, the community outreach piece is what makes our job relevant. Here in Saskatchewan, one of the visions of the university is that it would be different. It wouldn't be an ivory tower. This is sometimes talked about as the People's University, but the research and the faculty would be there as resources for the community. Now we're trying to take that a step further and saying that we realize that we're not just there offering something. It's actually transformative for both parties to engage in that. The image of places in our lives, when I look at the people here and I think of Catholic health institutions, the diocese, and the schools, like that, those are the places of my life, for instance, right? And to show how those are places that are active in the community is really important, and maybe to bring the college into that triumvirate that exists in front of you right now. Pope Francis's image of the field hospital as explicated by Blake with, that we need all hands on deck. I think that's connected to the relevance and the boldness, but also the challenge that the current Pope is setting for us. Myron also raised several important issues, this idea of the clearinghouse for social justice. I think that's a beautiful framing. The idea that we would, a lot of places concentrate on fundraising. Here, this is an expression of something that fundraising might be even more appropriate. There is, I guess, a need for a financial battery to drive these things, but the idea is that a lot of folks that are working in this, they just need some different points of connection, and this is related to relevance, boldness, etc. And the part of the center its purpose is to bring together those types of folks. The idea of reaching out to the folks that are usually not part of the conversation, that's part of what's going on in the center. We started with a Catholic core, but the idea is to reach out beyond that. So Pope Francis talks about us being called to the service of a difficult dialogue. It's engaging the people that are challenged by issues like Catholicism, but also issues surrounding Catholicism, but also issues of peace and justice more generally. And one of my teachers, coming to the storytelling point, one of my main teachers in peace studies, that was her area of research and application, was storytelling. And that's such an important entry point, and we've already experienced that, particularly with Indigenous folks at the college. So to give the last word to our, and we want to deepen that storytelling dimension. So to give the last word to the folks before we move to the blessing, and I will not respond. So I want Darcie to go last because I've been trained by ecofeminists. So she has the final word. So maybe if Myron could start. And based on what you have heard from both representatives of the college and your fellow panelists, what are your final thoughts just before we bless and commission the center? And we are now a little stretched for time, but so maybe a 1 minute final thought. Myron.
I'll keep it short. So in summary, I'm just impressed by the breadth. I think that the comprehensive approach that this center will be able to take on, reaching into education, reaching into healthcare in our community, the many different pillars of Catholic social teaching that exist, from protection of life to protection of the environment. And I think that is a powerful witness in itself. So in summary, I guess I would just say unity is something that has really touched me today as a driving force for this moving forward. And unity being a witness of coming together in a community that often says you can't necessarily speak about these delicate issues. So the center being that place where not only speaking about them, but incarnating them, giving students, giving people in the wider community, adults of all ages, an experience to hopefully connect with non-for-profits, connect more into their own respective faith communities, and really live out the calling of Catholic social teaching and social justice.
Just like back at work, Myron, just as you promote unity, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in and promote disunity or diversity. I agree that there's so much. I think the big thing that is going to be challenged to you, Chris, and the group that works around this is coming up with a game plan that brings all these people in and sort of says, we can't do everything, so where do we want to focus our energies? Yeah. Thank you for today.
I'm just excited that this is on record, that somebody's giving me the last word, and I intend to show this recording to my husband. So as far as my parting thoughts go, I am just excited. I am so excited by this. I'm heartened by the enthusiasm that I see, by your willingness to listen, by your willingness to seek input, and by your willingness to work together. And I think this is going to be a tremendous opportunity for our community, both within our staff and students and without too. So thank you very much for this opportunity today, and we look forward to working with you even more.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris, and thank you to all of our panelists. I would now like to invite Gertrude Rompré, Dr. Gertrude Rompré, who is our Director of Mission and Ministry here at St. Thomas More College, to lead us in our commissioning and blessing of the center.
Thank you, Celeste, and thank you everyone for being here with us today, and thank you especially to those who have shared their vision of the center, of how we can relate in partnership and really incarnate this vision in our community. I am certainly leaving inspired and grateful for this community. So as we move into this blessing, I was inspired by the words of former Archbishop of Brazil, Dom Helder Camara, who said, "Without justice and love, peace will always be a great illusion." So taking inspiration from his words, I invite us to pray this blessing. May STM's new Center for Faith, Reason, Peace, and Justice be a place where faith and reason walk hand in hand. A moment when justice deepens our love for each other. And a continuing conversation where swords are transformed into plowshares. May the Center for Faith, Reason, Peace, and Justice be an incubator of hope, a birthplace of understanding, a leaven for reconciliation. May our work together be rooted in faith, nourished by the intellect, and seasoned with love. For all this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. St. Thomas Aquinas, pray for us.
Pray for us.